Imagine beginning the day not as a routine, but as a sacred experiment. The sun rises, and with it, the possibility of a new kind of life. A day not governed by the ego's frantic agenda, but guided by an inner intelligence that knows your peace far better than you do. Every day contains two paths, one born of self-will and one born of surrender. The first fills hours with control, judgment, and tension. The second turns the ordinary into revelation. The ideal spiritual day is not about perfection, but alignment. Alignment with a wisdom that gently whispers, "Let me lead." A Course in Miracles calls this the rule for decision. Today I will make no decisions by myself. It sounds simple, almost too simple. But beneath those words lies the entire retraining of the human mind. To live this way means to stop assuming you know what anything means. It means stepping out of the narrow corridor of personal preference and walking into the spacious field of trust. It is, in every sense, a reversal of the world's logic. Happiness comes not from control but from release. Each morning, before the noise begins, the Course invites you to pause, to consciously choose the mindset that will guide the day. This choice is not passive. It is the quiet establishment of purpose. One decides, I want a peaceful day. I want a forgiving day. I want a day in which I remember who I am. And then comes the sacred clause. There is a way by which this very day can happen just like that. That way is guidance. The act of listening within, again and again, until listening becomes the rhythm of your life. Guidance is not mystical performance. It's intimacy. It's the invisible conversation between the surface of your mind and the deeper current beneath it. When you ask, you open that current. When you refuse to ask, you dam it. The ideal day, therefore, is a day of constant asking, not from fear or confusion, but from love. Where would you have me go? What would you have me say? What would you have me do? Each question invites serenity to take the wheel. Most people assume surrender means loss. They fear that divine guidance will steal their joy, cancel their plans, erase their individuality. Yet experience shows the opposite. When guidance leads, pleasure is refined, not removed. A simple walk feels luminous. A conversation becomes a holy encounter. Even the mundane tasks of work carry a shimmer of significance, as though time itself bows to the presence you've allowed to enter it. Still, the ego resists. It whispers, "You'll be happier if you decide everything yourself." That is the ancient lie. Each attempt at control builds invisible tension. Each judgment, though disguised as wisdom, becomes a brick in the wall, separating you from peace. The Course proposes a radical experiment. Spend one day letting go of every independent judgment. Ask before you act. Pause before you decide. Notice what happens when you trust that an unseen teacher walks beside you. Morning is the foundation. The first thoughts determine the direction of the mind's river. So the day begins, not with rushing, but with remembrance. Today, the narrator says, "I will not decide alone." In that single intention, the heart opens to guidance. You visualize the kind of day you want to live, not in detail, but in feeling. A day where love leads the way, a day free from grievance, a day of quiet confidence that nothing can be against you, because you walk with the source of peace itself. Throughout the hours that follow, the practice continues. You pause whenever you can. You renew your morning mindset. If I make no decisions by myself, this is the day that will be given me. And then you ask about a meeting, a message, a moment of uncertainty. The answer may come as a feeling, an image, or a thought so natural you could mistake it for your own. Yet when followed, it leads you toward harmony instead of strain. Slowly, decision by decision, you begin to taste a life not self-directed, but spirit-directed. Inevitably, the day will drift off course. We get impatient. We judge. We assume we know. The Course anticipates this with compassion. Expect resistance, but meet it with honesty. When you notice the tension rising, stop and admit, something has occurred that is not part of the day I wanted. Then say the restorative lines, I have no question. I forgot what to decide. Those words disarm the ego's certainty. They reopen the channel for guidance to flow again. In that humility, peace returns. This rhythm of alignment, drift, and restoration is the true dance of the spiritual life. It is not linear progress, it is circular remembrance. Every moment you return to guidance, you renew the relationship between self and source. Over time, asking becomes instinctive. The mind learns that peace is its home base. The heart begins to trust that surrender is safety, not loss. And life itself starts to feel choreographed by a higher hand, one that turns even small choices into steps of grace. To live a guided day is to live inside the answer to every prayer for purpose. It is to discover that divine order doesn't crush your freedom, it expresses it. The Spirit doesn't dictate, it collaborates. Guidance is not a voice commanding obedience. It is a presence inviting communion. The more you ask, the more you recognize that you are not being led away from yourself, but toward your truest self, the one that lives beyond fear and within love. The ego will still protest. It will insist that certainty lies in analysis, in control, in getting what you want. But each time you release that control and follow the quiet intuition within, something profound happens. The mind softens. The world responds differently. You begin to see that the universe is not a random sequence of events, but a living dialogue between you and the divine. And that dialogue begins with one simple willingness: to ask. The miracle of guidance is not that it gives you perfect plans, but that it changes the one who plans. It dissolves the tension of deciding alone. It replaces anxiety with participation. The more often you practice this inner consultation, the more life arranges itself around peace rather than struggle. The ideal spiritual day becomes not a fantasy but a rhythm, like breathing. Inhale inspiration, exhale surrender. There will be moments when resistance feels heavy, when the mind insists on its way. In those moments, remember the invitation to reason yourself back into trust. The Course calls this the longer restorative, a gentle internal dialogue that says, maybe I don't know what this means. Maybe my fear of asking is the only problem I have. Perhaps I would feel better if I saw this differently. Slowly, logic turns into grace. The mind loosens its grip, and once again you can hear. Each act of asking rewires perception. It teaches that everything is connected, that the Holy Spirit's guidance is not a detached voice in the clouds, but the quiet coherence behind all things. When you follow it, circumstances align, coincidences multiply, doors open where none existed. But more important than results is the feeling of flow, the sense that you are exactly where you need to be, doing exactly what love would have you do. Guidance is the art of partnership. It is living as though God were a constant companion, not an occasional guest. You begin the morning together, renew the bond each hour, and close the evening in gratitude. Thank you for your guidance today. Thank you for walking with me. The day becomes a dialogue, not a monologue. In that companionship, fear loses its throne. You realize you were never meant to carry the burden of decision alone. Imagine a world in which every person paused before reacting, before speaking, before judging, before condemning, and simply asked for guidance. Wars would dissolve before they began. Relationships would heal in silence. The planet itself would exhale. This is not fantasy. It is the collective extension of a single habit learned by one mind, repeated across millions: the habit of asking. One guided day becomes a seed of transformation for the entire species. To practice guidance is also to practice forgiveness. When you stop judging situations, you stop judging people. You begin to understand that everyone is doing the best they can with the light they have. The same voice that guides you guides them. The same love that leads you leads all. In this awareness, compassion becomes natural. Forgiveness ceases to be moral effort. It becomes perception. the vision of shared innocence. And that vision turns even conflict into classroom for love. The ideal spiritual day, then, is not about mystical experiences or constant bliss. It's about presence. It's about remembering the choice you made each morning, to let love lead. Some days will feel luminous, others quiet and uneventful. Yet beneath both runs the same current of peace, because you have anchored your mind in guidance. You may still face problems, but you will no longer face them alone. As night approaches, the day ends where it began, in gratitude. The narrator reflects, "Wisdom was given me when I needed it. I was not alone." You thank the source, not because you earned perfection, but because you practiced remembrance. You asked, you forgot, you asked again. That cycle is the rhythm of awakening. Each guided day strengthens the bridge between time and eternity, between the self that strives and the self that knows. Over weeks and months, the practice deepens. Life begins to organize itself around peace. Conflicts resolve more gently. Decisions feel lighter. Intuition sharpens. You notice synchronicities, messages on billboards, songs on the radio, strangers saying exactly what you needed to hear. These are the echoes of guidance confirming, yes, you are listening. And gradually you understand that the world is not against you. It mirrors your willingness to listen. The Course calls this a happy day. But happiness here is not excitement. It is quiet assurance, a calm gladness that hums beneath every activity. It's the peace of knowing you are in communication with something vast, benevolent, and utterly trustworthy. Once you taste that communion, control feels heavy, almost primitive. You would rather flow than force. You would rather be led than push. This is the inversion the Course calls salvation. The more you live guided days, the more your life becomes a string of miracles, ordinary events filled with extraordinary meaning. Guidance doesn't always change what you do, but it always changes how you do it. Work becomes service. Relationships become classrooms of divine intimacy. Even mistakes become teachers. You start to see that the Holy Spirit's plan is not to erase your humanity but to reveal its holiness. And in time, the distinction between my decisions and His decisions fades. Asking becomes being. Listening becomes living. You no longer consult a separate voice, you speak from within it. The will of God and your own will are no longer two lines diverging, but one line written in light. This is the final fruit of the ideal spiritual day, union, not as a mystical theory, but as the quiet fact of experience. You are not the wanderer seeking guidance. You are the guidance, temporarily dreaming of separation. Each morning the invitation repeats, begin again. The practice is always today. You do not need to be advanced or saintly. You only need willingness, the courage to ask, to trust, and to follow. And if you forget, simply begin again. Because the door to guidance never closes. The teacher never leaves. The happy day you long for is not somewhere in the future. It waits at the first moment you remember to ask. This is how an ordinary day becomes holy. Not by what happens in it, but by how you walk through it. The secret is simple, ancient, and always new. Make no decisions by yourself, and the universe will conspire to show you heaven on earth.